Let's look at our poll in detail, hang on, because we have 25% of people feel that Christians are discriminated against in the workplace. Now, Lynn,
I can't believe this. I mean, I've employed an awful lot of people in my life, and I have never asked somebody what their religion is when I've interviewed them. And once they work in the workplace, frankly, it's not about their religion, it's about their contribution to the business. I am amazed, and I'd like to see the facts that really back this up, because I think it's nonsense. I mean, as I say, you can get paranoid groups in every single section of society.
If you want to talk about discrimination in the workplace, of course, let's remember that Christian schools, going back to Christian schools, have the right to apply for only, or have only, a Christian head teacher. When they're advertising, they say we will only accept applications from Christians. In this day and age, I'm afraid, that has to change.
In every day and age, a Christian must be allowed to teach Christianity. If I'm running a vegetarian shop, allow me to appoint a vegetarian. Don't be silly.
A vegetarian shop is not 100% funded by the taxpayer. It's not.
Nor are our Christian schools, and
yes,
they are not. Yes. I put money in the collection plate every Sunday for our Catholic education, and you know perfectly well that the expression is voluntarily aided.
And 100% of the ongoing costs for local authority schools, it's actually 90% of the building.
You talked about
I'm a school governor. I'm
and you don't know what you're talking about, so you better apologise. Now listen, this is important. Victim mentality is all rubbish. You know, you're absolutely right about victim mentality. Persecution may well be good for us, and we shouldn't do that. But if you talk about discrimination, look at the medical profession. There are no doctors who are practicing Christians in gynecology who say, I won't do abortions, because you won't get a job if you say that. It is, of course, discriminatory, and most people would say it's right to discriminate against Christians.
Personal choice as a
I'm not
doctor,
saying it's not a personal choice. What we're talking about is whether you're discriminating against
I would like to bring up the British Airways.
One at a time, if you may.
I don't want to talk about crosses that you can wear. That's a uniform.
But I would like to talk
about jobs and workplaces.
I don't want
and as somebody who doesn't want to kill a baby.
Come on, what about the army? Okay, Christians are conscientiously objected to the army. They haven't said, actually, I want to be in the army, but I don't want to kill anyone.
But if you don't want to join the army, you don't have to
I'm going to have to leave that particular point.
So you're saying,
Joanna,
don't become a doctor, because you must kill a baby.
I have to intervene just 1 second, because we've talked a little bit about the workforce, and I'm quite sure many people are ringing about that. Now we turn to the media. Now, you've spent years in the media, Lynn. So what was the percentage on media, Nigel? Like 33%,
yeah.
Quite a high figure.
Again, I think there's an awful lot of groups that would say the media discriminate against them, women for a start. The fact is that headlines are headlines and news is news, and where the media can get a story, they'll get a story. I see far more headlines, for example, about youth groups, on ethnicity or on racial background than I do about religion. Perhaps there is some kind of justification for it, but no more than there is for the Jews, for the Hindus, for the Buddhists, and so on.
Well, what about the fact that, I mean, I read quite a lot of the detail of the report, and a lot of people say that in the media they poke fun at Christians all the time. You know, would you say that's a
PR job that needs to be done?
I think absolutely. You can go back to Monty Python's Life of Brian, you can see Jerry Springer, the opera. I had a good laugh at those. I think they were quite amusing. But if you look at actually the Islamophobia, the negative portrayal of Muslims, and what's going on with Jews as well, I think actually, you know, when you get violence against Muslims resulting from media perceptions, when you get the desecration of Jewish cemeteries, I think you actually have to look elsewhere to say, where is the real discrimination going? Where is the real negative portrayal going on? And let's not forget that Christians have prime time slots. Still, like Thought for the Day tomorrow, which I'll be doing on Radio 4 as a Christian, you know, to put their faith across. They have statutory built into law, these places where they can talk about their faith.
Last comment from you, Joanna.
I think we're talking as if the reality wasn't there. Everybody knows that if you are a practicing Christian and you think, for example, that sexual activity should be confined to marriage and you want to teach that in a school, it will be against the law as from the new law going into force this month. That is discrimination, no question. And you don't have to have a victim mentality, you just have to know the facts.
On that point, I have to leave it, but obviously we'll be talking about it because many, many people are ringing in as we speak. So we'll see you later on in the programme. And your comments, I tell you, have been coming in thick and fast on the question of discrimination against Christians. This one's from Sue in Northumberland. Good morning, Sue. She said, Christian symbols and traditions are being withdrawn from society, but that isn't discrimination per se. Surely it's political correctness gone too far. Jonathan.
Yeah, I mean, and certainly there's an element in having to embrace the multicultural nature of our society. I don't see a great deal of evidence of symbols being withdrawn. I mean, over the BA Cross route, it was an old blanket regulation which said no jewellery, and of course the Jewish Star of David and all other religious symbols were also banned, and the cross wasn't a requirement in the same way as the hijab was. So I think often these are misreported in the press as well.
Rob in Cumbria says Christians don't face discrimination, just a sensible refusal to treat them as a special case. And Lee in Northumberland, morning Lee, says if you want to see real discrimination, declare yourself an atheist. And one final one, Guy in Bristol says, sometimes we need discrimination. How could you have a Muslim head teacher of a Christian school? But keep them coming in. Thank you for all of that. I'm pleased to say that our panelists are with us, and you have been fantastic this morning, coming in with all your comments about the various issues. This one is from Stuart, who's in Northamptonshire. Hi, Stuart. He says, this is a case of pots and kettles. It's the Christian community which discriminates most against others. Look at the gay adoption line. Want to pick it up?
Absolutely. I mean, there are a number of areas where the Christian community is repeatedly discriminating. And I think this is at the heart of the matter. It's got to sort out whether it's going to be someone that goes for a level playing field. And this is crucial. How is the Christian community, whatever the rights and wrongs of this, how are they going to respond? Are they going to actually respond with love? Are they going to respond with forgiveness? Are they going to respond as Christ suggested they do? Or are they going to stand up militantly and go on asserting their rights, which will leave them way open to charges of
Sorry.
I agree. Well, I'm just thinking what's happened in America now with the Christian far right, and where we've seen it's gone so far down the way, and I hope, for goodness sake, it never happens like that over here.
Question actually coming up for Joanna. Marielle, who sent an email on discrimination, she says, my Catholic husband was told he'd lose out on promotion in the retail sector if he refused to work on Sundays. Anne Widdecombe is right. It's about time we stood up against this.
I think the issue too relates to gay adoption. If I think that children should not be brought up by two practicing homosexuals because they'll be taught that homosexual activity is right when it's wrong, I have an absolute right to do that. I'm sure people think I'm wrong. They can go on saying I'm wrong. And a lot of them are dreadfully rude to me, and sometimes physically so. But I have a right to do that and a duty to do that in love, in forgiveness and in charity.
No one's saying that you can't.
Yes, they are. They're saying that I have to allow my children to be adopted by homosexuals, and I don't have the right to stop it.
The taxpayer should not
No, they're not.
pay
They're saying that even if it's a private adoption agency funded entirely by the Catholic Church, it must give little children up to homosexuals. No question, that's the law.
My
If you
turn
think it's
now.
fair, fine.
My turn. Alvin sent an email. Hi, Susan. She says, I agree that there is discrimination in the workplace. I work in healthcare, and I became suddenly very unpopular when I made it known I have Christian faith. Richard, who's in Hebden Bridge, it looks like, says Christians should consult Muslims, Jews and pagans about how to cope with religious discrimination collectively. They have had 2,000 years experience of it.
Absolutely.
A voicemail reaction which says, how can Christians say they're discriminated against if they have historically discriminated against lots of groups, especially gays and lesbians? That's back to that issue. And Jason says, if Christians showed more compassion for other discriminated groups, maybe people would have a lot more sympathy with their cause.
This is what absolutely breaks my heart. Christians, I know so many loving Christians in local communities who get on quietly day to day, loving their neighbour as Jesus suggested that they did. But we get a lot of vocal Christians getting up, being very militant and giving the rest of the Christians...
And we were looking at Norman. We were just saying about Norman.
What a wonderful PR.
Lives out his Christian faith.
Gorgeous couple. And also, let's look at Christian Aid, an incredible charity and an incredible NGO who do amazing work all over the world. And I'm not seeing here, they're not here belly aching that they're being victimised or anything.
They might be, because people like me who also are active in charities also bellyache. Just because you love doesn't mean you can't be clear about your faith. We don't always want to brag about our Christian charity work, but we jolly well brag about Jesus Christ.
Well, you know what, Joanna,
that.
unless you want to do a duet with June Alma Trading, I'm afraid I have to leave it at that point. That actually would be a very interesting exercise. Matt, thank you very much indeed. You've been very lively, very opinionated, and of course, very vocal.